The Mark 22 Model 0 earned its nickname the hard way by silently killing guard dogs. Vietnam, 1967. Navy SEALs infiltrate Viet Cong camps under cover of darkness. Their mission depends on absolute silence, but enemy sentries aren't the primary threat. Guard dogs are. These animals detect intruders hundreds of yards out, and a single bark means mission failure, extraction under fire, or death. The solution arrived in the form of a modified pistol that barely whispered. Smith & Wesson took their Model 39 semi-automatic, chambered it in 9mm, and engineered something unprecedented. They didn't just attach a suppressor, they redesigned the fundamental operation of the weapon. The Mark 22 featured a slide lock mechanism that prevented the action from cycling after each shot. No moving slide meant no mechanical clatter. Being combined with the integral suppressor designed specifically for this platform, the weapon produced a sound signature comparable to a hammer striking wood. This wasn't Hollywood silence, it was tactical silence. Subsonic ammunition was mandatory. Standard 9mm rounds break the sound barrier, creating a supersonic crack no suppressor can eliminate. The Mark 22 fired specialized subsonic loads that kept velocity below 1,100 feet per second. The trade-off was brutal. Effective range dropped to approximately 50 yards, and stopping power decreased significantly. But SEALs weren't engaging targets at distance. They were eliminating sentries and animals at conversational range. Waterproofing presented another engineering challenge. SEALs operated in riverine environments, emerging from swamps and rivers to execute missions. Standard firearms failed catastrophically after submersion. The Mark 22 received special O-ring seals around the barrel and slide, protective coatings on internal components, and a drainage system for the suppressor baffles. It could be submerged, withdrawn, and fired immediately. The weapon served for 2 decades across Vietnam, Grenada, and Panama. Its manual slide lock operation meant fewer failure points than complex semi-automatic systems. Simplicity equaled reliability. When suppressor baffles wore out after approximately 200 rounds, armorers replaced them. When rubber seals degraded in tropical heat, SEALs carried spares. But the Hush Puppy was a scalpel, not a sword. It excelled at covert elimination missions where 1 or 2 silent shots solved the problem. As SEAL operations evolved from silent infiltration to direct action raids, they needed firepower, volume of fire, and range. And the weapon they received would become one of the most controversial rifles in American military history. The M16A1 was supposed to revolutionize infantry warfare. For Navy SEALs, it nearly got them killed. SEALs inherited the M16A1 during Vietnam as standard issue, replacing heavier battle rifles. On paper, it was perfect. Lightweight, low recoil, high-capacity magazines. In practice, operating in jungles and swamps, it jammed constantly. The rifle's catastrophic failures traced back to a decision made thousands of miles from any battlefield. Eugene Stoner designed the AR-15 platform around a specific gunpowder called IMR 4475. During Army procurement, officials switched to ball powder to save costs. This seemingly minor change increased the cyclic rate and generated far more carbon fouling. The direct impingement gas system, where propellant gases cycle back into the bolt carrier, meant this fouling deposited directly into the weapon's operating mechanism. SEALs operated in the worst possible conditions for this design: humid jungle air, muddy riverbanks, saltwater immersion during beach infiltrations, sand from coastal insertions. The M16A1 choked on all of it. The forward assist, that small button on the right side of the receiver, told the whole story. It was added because the rifle wouldn't reliably chamber rounds under field conditions. Soldiers and SEALs literally had to manually ram cartridges into battery. This wasn't a feature, it was a band-aid on a bullet wound. Buffer systems failed after river crossings. SEALs would emerge from water, engage targets, and experience stoppages as water trapped in the buffer tube disrupted the recoil assembly. The weapon that was supposed to give them superior firepower instead forced them into malfunction drills during firefights. Vietnam-era frogmen developed obsessive cleaning rituals. They carried backup weapons. Some teams preferred captured AK-47s because Soviet engineering proved more reliable than American innovation. When your enemy's rifle works better than yours, institutional failure is complete. Chrome-lined chambers and barrels arrived in later variants, improving corrosion resistance. Cleaning kits became standard issue rather than optional. Training emphasized maintenance over marksmanship, but the reputation damage was permanent. When an entire generation of SEALs learned to distrust their primary weapon system, the M16A1 wasn't a bad design corrupted by one wrong decision. It was a perfect storm of procurement shortcuts, environmental extremes, and operational demands the rifle was never engineered to meet. It worked beautifully in controlled conditions. Combat isn't controlled. Burned by unreliable rifles, SEALs needed overwhelming firepower they could trust, and they found it in a modular weapon system so distinctive that its sound alone became a psychological weapon. The Stoner 63A sounded like nothing else on the battlefield, and that sound made enemies run. Eugene Stoner, fresh off designing the AR-15, envisioned something revolutionary, a modular weapon system that could transform from assault rifle to carbine to light machine gun using the same core components. Swap a few parts in the field, and one weapon became three. SEALs ignored most configurations. They wanted the belt-fed light machine gun variant. In riverine patrol boats cruising the Mekong Delta, SEALs mounted Stoner 63 as on pintles and door frames. The weapon fired 7.62 by 51mm NATO ammunition from disintegrating belts at roughly 700 to 900 rounds per minute. This cyclic rate produced a distinctive acoustic signature, not the slow thump of an M60, not the rapid chatter of an AK. Something in between, something recognizable. Viet Cong and North Vietnamese army forces learned that sound fast. Reports from debriefed prisoners and allied forces indicated that when VC heard the Stoners' report, they broke contact and retreated. The weapon became a psychological force multiplier. Fire a burst, watch the enemy withdraw. The tactical advantage was undeniable. At 12 pounds loaded, the Stoner weighed nearly half what an M60 weighed. SEAL teams operated in small numbers, often 6 to 8 men, without resupply for days. Every pound mattered. A lighter machine gun meant more ammunition, more explosives, more operational flexibility. But modularity cut both ways. The weapon's ease of field stripping meant components could be lost during operations. Drop a firing pin spring in swamp water at night. Mission compromised. The multiple configurations required specialized training and bulky spare parts inventories. Boy, a SEAL armorer couldn't just stock one set of replacement components. They needed parts for rifle configurations, carbine configurations, machine gun configurations. Logistics killed the Stoner 63A more effectively than any enemy fire. The military supply chain couldn't support a weapon this different from standard infantry arms. Replacement parts came slowly or not at all. As SEAL teams rotated stateside and new operators cycled in, institutional knowledge eroded. By the mid-1970s, the Stoner 63A disappeared from SEAL armories, not because it failed in combat, but because the system couldn't sustain it. The Stoner dominated at range and in sustained fire, but SEALs also needed extreme close-quarters capability for room clearing and breaching, and they found it in a weapon originally designed for prison guards. The Remington 870 pump-action shotgun has been in SEAL service for over 50 years because sometimes simplicity wins. Adopted in the 1970s, the 870 filled a role no rifle could: extreme close-quarters combat where absolute stopping power mattered more than range or capacity. Room clearing, breaching, point-blank engagements where hesitation meant death. SEAL armorers modified the standard 870 extensively. Barrels were shortened to 14 inches, requiring federal tax stamps. Extended magazine tubes increased capacity. Heat shields protected operators' hands during rapid fire. Sling mounts allowed retention during transitions to sidearms. The shotgun's real advantage was ammunition versatility: buckshot for personnel at close range, slugs for barrier penetration and stopping power beyond 20 yards, in breaching rounds for blowing door hinges and locks without risking over-penetration into rooms beyond. One weapon system, multiple tactical applications, instant adaptability. Pump-action operation proved nearly immune to the fouling and environmental contamination that plagued semi-automatic designs. Mud, sand, saltwater immersion, the 870 functioned. The manual action meant fewer moving parts, fewer failure points, and operation with a wider range of ammunition qualities. If a round didn't fire, rack the pump and continue. But the compromise was brutal. 6 rounds in the tube, plus 1 in the chamber. That's it. Reloading under stress required fine motor skills that degraded during adrenaline dumps. In prolonged firefights, the 870 became a liability. SEALs carried them as secondary weapons, never primary rifles. Decades later, despite advances in semi-automatic shotgun technology, the 870 remains in SEAL inventories. Modern operators can choose from Benelli M4s and other advanced platforms, but many still select the Remington. Reliability trumps innovation when lives depend on function. The shotgun solves immediate problems at conversational distances. It doesn't fail. In the chaos of breaching a compound or clearing a ship, that certainty matters more than technological sophistication. Shotguns dominated close quarters, but they couldn't reach targets at distance. And when SEALs transitioned from jungles to deserts and urban warfare, they needed precision at range, from a weapon that redefined sniper support. The Heckler & Koch PSG-1 was the most accurate semi-automatic rifle in the world, and almost completely impractical for military use. Developed for German police counterterrorism units in the 1970s, the PSG-1 represented zero-compromise engineering. Heckler & Koch designed it for one mission: hostage rescue, where a single shot must be absolutely certain. The rifle delivered sub-minute of angle accuracy straight from the factory, meaning it could group shots within 1 inch at 100 yards consistently. SEAL Team 6 adopted the PSG-1 for similar precision requirements during the 1980s, but the compromises revealed themselves immediately. The rifle weighed 17.8 pounds unloaded. Add optics, a loaded 20-round magazine, and supporting equipment, operators carried nearly 25 pounds of sniper rifle. For extended movements or multi-target scenarios, that weight became prohibitive. The trigger was non-adjustable, factory set at exactly 3 pounds. For trained shooters, this was excellent. For military procurement and varied skill levels, it eliminated customization. The polygonal barrel rifling and specialized bolt design required proprietary maintenance procedures that conventional armorers couldn't perform. Then came the price, over $10,000 per rifle. In 1980s currency, adjusted for inflation, that's approximately $25,000 today. For a weapon that offered marginal improvements over platforms costing a quarter as much, the economics didn't support large-scale adoption. The PSG-1 represented European police philosophy: unlimited budget, controlled environments, single decisive shots. Military operations demanded durability, field maintainability, and cost-effectiveness at scale. Eugene Stoner provided the solution before his death in 1997. The SR-25 took the AR platform Stoner had pioneered and scaled it up to 7.62 by 51 mm NATO. This gave SEALs parts commonality with their M4 and M16 family weapons, while delivering precision rifle capability. Same manual of arms, same basic maintenance procedures, same logistical pipeline. Knight's Armament Company refined Stoner's design into the Mark 11 Model 0, which received official SEAL adoption in the early 2000s. The concept of the designated marksman emerged from this weapon, not a traditional sniper with a bolt-action rifle, but a member of the assault team who could engage targets at extended range while maintaining semi-automatic firepower. The SR-25 and its descendants weighed 13 pounds loaded. They accepted standard AR accessories and optics. Armorers already knew how to maintain them. And they cost a fraction of specialized European precision rifles. Precision rifles filled the long-range gap, but SEALs still lacked a truly reliable close-quarters battle rifle for the post-9/11 era, until Belgian engineering proved that sometimes the best American solution comes from overseas. The FN SCAR was the first rifle designed specifically for Navy SEALs and other special operations forces, and half of it failed anyway. In 2004, United States Special Operations Command issued requirements for a next-generation combat rifle. They wanted modularity, reliability in extreme environments, ambidextrous controls, and the ability to switch calibers in the field. Fabrique Nationale of Belgium won the contract with the SCAR, Special Operations Forces Combat Assault Rifle. Two variants emerged, the SCAR L in 5.56 by 45 mm NATO, and the SCAR H in 7.62 by 51 mm NATO. SEALs designated them Mark 16 and Mark 17 respectively. The engineering departed from decades of American rifle design philosophy. Instead of Eugene Stoner's direct impingement gas system, FN used a short-stroke gas piston. Propellant gases pushed a piston that cycled the bolt, but the gases themselves vented away rather than flowing back into the receiver. This meant significantly less carbon fouling in the operating mechanism, the exact problem that had plagued the M16A1 in Vietnam 40 years earlier. Fully ambidextrous controls allowed left-handed shooters to operate the weapon naturally. The charging handle could be installed on either side. Magazine releases and bolt releases were duplicated. The gas regulator adjusted for suppressed versus unsuppressed fire without tools. Barrels could be changed in under 2 minutes without an armorer. This was purpose-built special operations hardware, not adapted infantry rifles. Then reality intervened. The SCAR L offered marginal improvements over the upgraded M4A1 carbine that SEALs already carried. Better reliability, yes. Superior ergonomics, certainly. But not enough to justify the cost of wholesale replacement, retraining entire teams, and establishing new logistical supply chains. By 2010, SEAL teams largely abandoned the Mark 16. The SCAR H survived because it filled a genuine capability gap. No 7.62 mm battle rifle in American service offered comparable weight to reliability balance. The Mark 17 weighed 8 pounds unloaded versus 11 pounds for comparable platforms. It delivered full-power rifle cartridge performance in a package nearly as compact as 5.56 mm carbines. Today, the SCAR H remains in SEAL inventories not as a universal replacement rifle, but as a specialized tool for scenarios requiring barrier penetration and extended range beyond what 5.56 mm provides. But even cutting-edge battle rifles couldn't solve the fundamental challenge of post-9/11 urban warfare. SEALs needed compact weapons that could defeat body armor and function in vehicles, leading to one of the most significant cartridge developments in decades. The Mark 18 CQBR solved one problem by creating another, and the solution required inventing an entirely new cartridge. Post-9/11 combat shifted to urban environments where SEALs fought in tight hallways, vehicles, and buildings with minimal standoff distances. The standard M4 carbine with its 14.5-inch barrel was still too long. Operators needed extreme maneuverability for vehicle-borne operations and close-quarters battle. The Mark 18 close-quarters battle receiver shortened the barrel to 10.3 inches. The weapon became far easier to manipulate in confined spaces, transition around corners, and employ from vehicle windows. But physics doesn't negotiate. The 5.56 by 45 mm cartridge was designed around the original M16's 20-inch barrel. The powder charge burned completely over that length, converting chemical energy into velocity. From a 10.3-inch barrel, the round lost massive amounts of velocity because the powder didn't have time to burn completely. Incomplete combustion meant dramatic muzzle flash, sometimes 2 feet of visible flame that destroyed night vision and revealed shooter positions. Terminal ballistics degraded severely. The 5.56 mm relies on velocity to fragment and transfer energy to targets. Below approximately 2,500 feet per second, fragmentation becomes inconsistent. The Mark 18 pushed rounds at barely 2,300 feet per second from the muzzle. At any distance beyond 50 yards, effectiveness dropped dramatically. SEALs accepted this compromise because maneuverability outweighed ballistic performance in the missions they were conducting. Room clearing and vehicle operations happened at conversational distances where the velocity loss mattered less. Then Advanced Armament Corporation developed .300 AAC Blackout in 2011. The cartridge was engineered specifically to deliver complete powder burn from barrels as short as 9 inches. It used the same bolt, magazines, and lower receivers as standard 5.56 mm AR-15 platforms. No modifications required except the barrel and chamber. Operators could switch uppers in seconds. Blackout offered something unprecedented: legitimate supersonic performance for barrier penetration and stopping power, plus the ability to fire subsonic ammunition for suppressed operations from the same weapon without adjustments. A 220-grain subsonic round from a suppressed Mark 18 in .300 Blackout produced less sound than Hollywood portrays, with far more energy retention than subsonic 9mm. The limitation remained range. Blackout's effective envelope extended to roughly 300 yards maximum. Beyond that, the heavier, slower projectiles lost energy rapidly. It was a specialist cartridge for a specialist weapon, not a universal replacement for 5.56mm. But for the urban battlefields of Iraq, Afghanistan, and counter-terrorism operations worldwide, the Mk-18 in .300 Blackout represented the evolution of close-quarters combat capability. A weapon system purpose-built for the war SEALs were actually fighting. Yet even the most advanced assault rifles and cartridges couldn't eliminate every target. And when SEALs needed absolute precision at extreme range, they turned to weapons that represented the pinnacle of modern sniper technology. The Mark 13 Model 7 represents the endpoint of 70 years of sniper rifle evolution, a weapon where the shooter's skill matters more than the hardware. Built on the Remington 700 Action, a bolt-action platform dating to 1962, the Mark 13 chambers .300 Winchester Magnum, a hunting cartridge from 1963. There's nothing revolutionary about the core components. The revolution is in how they're assembled and employed. The modular chassis system allows field reconfiguration for different mission profiles. Mountain operations require different stock lengths and barrel weights than urban environments. Desert missions demand heat mitigation that maritime operations don't. SEALs can adapt the same rifle to radically different conditions without armor or support. Suppressor integration was engineered from the beginning, rather than added as an afterthought. The barrel threads, gas flow, and harmonics account for a suppressor's presence. This allows precision shots in civilian-dense environments where sound signature reduction prevents collateral panic and preserves operational security. The rifle delivers sub-minute of angle accuracy to 1,000 yards with match-grade ammunition. In practical terms, a trained SEAL sniper can place rounds into a 10-inch circle at that distance consistently. This enables what military doctrine calls surgical strikes, eliminating specific high-value targets while minimizing risks to surrounding civilians. But the Mark 13 has reached the limits of what hardware alone can achieve. The rifle's mechanical accuracy exceeds most shooters' capability to exploit it. Wind reading, range estimation, environmental compensation, target movement prediction. These human factors determine hit probability far more than incremental equipment improvements. A mediocre shooter with the Mark 13 will underperform an expert with a basic Remington 700. This reality shapes SEAL sniper training. Thousands of rounds fired under varied conditions, stress inoculation, mathematical ballistic calculations internalized until they become instinct. The weapon is merely the tool. The operator is the weapon system. Looking forward, the civilian shooting world has embraced cartridges like 6.5mm Creedmoor that offer superior ballistic coefficients and wind resistance compared to .300 Winchester Magnum. But military procurement cycles move slowly. The Mark 13 in its current configuration will likely serve another decade before institutional adoption of newer calibers. From Vietnam-era suppressed pistols to modern precision rifles, SEAL weapons have evolved in response to tactical realities. Each platform emerged from specific operational needs. Each design revealed the unforgiving calculus, where equipment failure meant casualties. The guns changed, the mission endured.